Hello and welcome to today's Partner Web Conference. This is Fast Track Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Enterprise Edition Tech Talk. Today's topic, CDS Data Integrator. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Senior R&D Solution Architect, Kirill Val. So without any further delay, Kirill, over to you.
Thank you, my Janice. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Kirill Val. I work as a solution architect for Fast Track team, and together with me, answering your questions while I'm presenting, Paul Wu, Vasudev Burle, and Martin Walker. So feel free to type your questions while I'm presenting, and they will be answered as we speak. Today's PowerPoint deck will be sent out to you as well. So all the useful links we're going to post here, you will receive them in a very short time. So our today's topic is CDS data integration. When I was learning it myself about CDS, I had a very big question. What is CDS? What is CDS data integrator? And recently, with our recent announcements, there are too many things that are currently happening at the same time. Too much terminology, CDS 1.0, what is CDS for applications announced during spring release, how it's all connected, what is CDS for data analytics, and how we can move data between Dynamics 365 for sales and Dynamics 365 for operations. So during today's session, I will try to address some of the common questions that we receive as part of our Fast Track team's customers' engagements. And also, I will try to address some of the common troubleshooting problems with CDS, and I will demo in general how to work with CDS and how to start your process of learning CDS. So first of all, and of course, besides just learning about CDS, we're going to talk a bit of a general approach. We will talk about how to design integrations in general, what's coming, what are the features in preview, and we'll of course have a Q&A, and we'll tell you if you're interested in CDS data integrator, where to find more information and how to ask questions afterwards. So first of all, before we learn more about CDS, let's take a step backwards, and let's look, why do we do those things? Why do we have CDS? Why we started the journey? So our current vision, we really would like to accelerate business transformation for our customers. There are multiple components involved when it comes to digital transformation and transforming business for your clients. However, there is one key component here. It's the data. You do need data in order to run AI against the data. You do need data in order to make actionable decisions. So that's something that absolutely is the key, and you do need to have the data as in the middle, in the center of your approach for transformation. So, and originally, last year, we decided, yes, we do need such kind of place to keep your data and to ensure that all our services can access it in a seamless way. Before that, sales and Dynamics 365 for operations and our other products were completely separate products. That was a bit confusing for our customers because they are all sold under common brand, Dynamics 365. So many customers automatically assume that since both of those products sold under the same brand, we Microsoft provide seamless integration across all those brands, similar as to what we have in our Office offerings between Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other products. Unfortunately, as you know, that was not the case. So last year, old CDS, or also known as CDS 1.0, that was our first attempt to bridge that gap and solve that very common issue for our customers. So our first approach was to create a common data service as a standalone entity database with its own schema and its own independent developer SDK. That is fine. The problem we noticed while we deployed that solution was that, first of all, it's a performance problem. forcing customers to do two-gap data move between sales and CDS, and then from between CDS and finance and operations was quite slow. The other problem is that by introducing new SDK, we are asking our customers and partners to learn new technologies, new SDKs, which is of course require some investment, and ideally we should avoid that and use some of the existing proven SDKs. So our new approach, as it's been released in CDS Spring release, we did a few changes here to our original model. First of all, we merged Dynamics 365 CRM part with CDS for applications. So now that pretty much is the same database, the same data schema. That's a very good thing because, as you know, the best integration is no integration at all. So we can avoid integration, and we can instead use the same database, the same data model. This is the best possible way to address integrations. Other thing we did, we introduced also CDS for analytics. At the moment, it's still in development, but that's going to be placeholder for all analytics and all BI aspects of your data. Interesting thing that both CDS for applications and CDS for analytics, they share the same CDM, common data model, that allows very nice integration between those two systems, as well as since it's an open source model, it can be introduced new parts of the schema here, new data models, new components. So we hope that's going to be very powerful way to represent your data across multiple systems. So that's a few facts about CDS for applications. As I mentioned, it's merged with CRM. Interestingly, I've seen on some forums even a term CRM/CDS. I haven't seen it in any official documentation, but I think it explains pretty well what is happening between CRM and CDS. Few words what else we can do with CDS for applications and how we can use that data that you move inside that CDS. First of all, now you have two types of applications that you can create. One of them is model-driven applications, which are for more complex parts that you can use full suite of CRM development tools in order to develop it, and canvas applications, which are more lightweight applications. SDK, we don't need anymore any independent SDK. We use good old proven XRM SDK from CRM, as well as we introduced a few other very high sought features like server-side logic, business process flows, a better security model, and other features that will help developers work with CDS for applications and data inside it. Note that you must have a Dynamics 365 license or Power Apps P2 license. If you don't have those, you can apply for trial and use them, I believe, for 30 days while you are exploring that new feature. So that's pretty much what we want to tell in general about CDS for applications. But our today's topic is not CDS for applications. Our today's topic is CDS Data Integrator. And there is a bit of a misconception on the market. What is the difference between CDS Data Integrator and CDS in general? Thanks to a very confusing naming convention, people assume that CDS Data Integrator and CDS are the same things. So first goal of our today's presentation is to address that misconception. So as on the previous slide, and on this slide you saw, all these different products, all CDS, it's all about the data, whether well located in one system or multiple systems or in CDS. Question is how to move the data across those systems, how to move data into CDS from third-party systems, and how to move data between AX and CRM. CDS Data Integrator is the answer to that question. It's a framework that helps integrate business processes and also get data into CDS. And we, as Microsoft, provide you some standard templates that help you to do that, or allow you to create some custom templates. It's not a new framework. If CDS itself, CDS 2.0 or CDS for applications, available since the spring, But CDS Data Integrator, that framework that moves data around, is been generally available since July 2017. So we already have quite a few customers who leverage that framework in order to move their data around. It's not a standalone framework. It's a part of the Power Apps admin portal. But another part to understand here that it's not a new framework. It's not one more framework that allows you to move data. Think of it as another layer on top of our good old data management framework within Dynamics. So it does not, that data integrator, it does not replace DMF. In fact, it goes as another layer there. DMF moves data entities. CDS Data Integrator allows to go one way higher and integrate on the business process level. So currently, there are two uses for CDS for Data Integrator. So this is, you see on the picture, how it used to be before Spring release. Nowadays, as you can see, now we have a bit simplified the picture. CDS Data Integrator out of the box supports two systems. It supports Dynamics 365 for finance and operations as one of the endpoints, and Dynamics 365 for sales, CRM, as another endpoint. I know there are a lot of questions about talent, whether talent is supported by CDS Data Integrator and CDS in general. Unfortunately, at the moment, CDS Data Integrator does not support integration with talent out of the box. So at the moment, talent engineering team, they're working to resolve that issue. So at the moment, they're moving to the new model of CDS. And they, as soon as they move into that model, they will resolve the issue of integration, and then they will start using CDS Data Integrator out of the box. But at the moment, integration with talent is manual. You have to pretty much manually export, not manually, but use other technologies, not CDS Data Integrator, in order to provide that integration to your customers. Later, I'll provide you with a few useful links to our current Yammer groups that will, if you sign up for those groups and sign NDA, that will keep you up to date on the progress done in that direction. So these products that AX and CRM, that allows you to move data between those two systems. But there is one key feature that really will enhance the data integrator capabilities, and it's a real game changer. So it's the Power Query. Currently, Power Query capability is in private preview. So later I'll provide instructions how to sign up for that private preview. But as soon as it becomes generally available, you will be able to use that Power Query to move data from all currently supported Power Queries sources into CDS. It is great because that currently Power Query it's a wonderful feature. It supports more than 75 sources out of the box, and it's growing. Besides that, it's an amazing opportunity for other more advanced features, transformations, filtering that can be done using CDS Power Query capabilities. Few things. So when you are looking into CDS Data Integrator and deciding whether or not it's something that you would like to work for your project, few things to remember. First of all, CDS Data Integrator is the one of key frameworks that we designing, we supporting, and we will continue investing into that framework. So we really would like that framework to be clever enough and robust enough in order to simplify the way how customers move data across their multiple systems. Since those systems are very different, I don't think it's ever going to be completely seamless integration here, but we will ensure that that framework provides them with an option to design such integration in a much more cheaper way, and most of the stuff we will take care of. So a few things to remember. First of all, it's not a standalone framework. It's built on top of DMF, which means some of the limitations of that framework and some of the benefits of that framework are also derived from DMS. So if you know DMS well enough, you will find that you can debug and troubleshoot CDS data integrator very easily. And later I'll show you a quick example how to do that. Other important thing, the framework is not for real-time or near real-time processing. It's mostly for asynchronous processing. Another thing that currently is not very easy to do using that framework is bidirectional multi-master sync. When you have, for instance, some users changing data in CRM, some users changing the same data in AX, and that's not very easy to design your integration in a way that those data not get overridden during sync. CDS data integrator, it's not MDM, so it doesn't have any conflict resolution. So you will need to design some custom filters when moving the data around in order to achieve that multi-sync scenario. But by default, out of the box, it is not available for our current templates, and it's something that you would like to design custom if your users require this. When you start working with CDS data integrator, it's also important to remember that you have to have Power Apps V2 license. As I mentioned, you can sign up for a trial for that license, and that will allow you to use all the features of CDS data integrator. One more aspect that customers always ask us, how much of the data we integrate? What is our approach? So as I mentioned, we don't integrate 100% at the moment. Our approach was to create that framework, which I'm going to talk about, as well as provide some templates designed within that framework based on some business processes. Currently, we have one available generally available, which is profit to cash. So all entities included inside that process are available as a Microsoft shipped template. We have a few more: field service automation and PSA. So those two are in preview. Of course, if you know the framework, you will be able to create your custom template for your custom entities. And also, if you customize any of the entities that are included into our existing templates, you will be able to customize those as well, change mapping in order to account for your custom fields or custom requirements. So these are the key things that we would like you to remember about CDS data integrator. Now let's take a closer look. Let's step back a little bit and talk, before we even talk about the framework, let's talk in general. How would you approach design of integrations between two systems? That is a very complex question. It's not easy to address it, but you have to ask those questions every time you see integration between two systems. And before you gather answers to those questions, you shouldn't be able to decide which framework and how integration are going to play out. First of all, you have to look into the volume. Next, look whether integration you're designing is synchronous or asynchronous. Frequency of integration, is it 1 second? Is it 1 minute? Is it 1 day? Shape of the data, check if that entity that you are integrating between those two systems, whether it does even exist within your destination system, or needs to be created, or are there any transformations that you'd like to include as part of your integration process. Every time you integrate across multiple systems, of course, another question is a question of the data types. As you know, within CRM and AX, data types are very different, so you will need to ensure that the mapping across those types and conversions done in the proper way. Next thing you have to address is what data needs to be moved. Sometimes you don't want to move all your customers from CRM to X. You would like to limit, for instance, just for the customers who are already confirmed. You don't want to move any early leads into your X system, as you've seen on some of our customers. Those filters that you have to decide with the business what is the right approach here. Another question is also, of course, conflict resolution. How would you address the question whether if somebody changed your customer, let's say in one system, and the same customer got changed in a different system, whether you will prevent a sync or you have some kind of automatic conflict resolution. And of course, the direction of sync, where your data is coming from, where it's going to, as well as whether you plan to do full or incremental sync of data between those two systems. So all those questions are framework agnostic. You should ask yourself those questions every time you begin integration process. Few important things specifically to address when it comes to AX and CRM. So first of all, one thing that we've seen very recently on one of the cases, that's difference between business logic and validation across those two systems. One of our customers, they are moving their customer records from CRM to AX. And as you know, within CRM, we don't have very robust validation of addresses. Whichever address you type within CRM will accept it. AX, on the other hand, has a very robust address structure. If you don't have a certain zip code or you don't have a certain state available in the master data tables of AX or the certificate for operations, in such cases, those records will be rejected. So already you can see integration between those two systems, even on such basic level, will require some questions and some answers. Whether or not you'd like to move that more strict address validation to CRM system and change your existing process within CRM, or you'd like to do any automated way. So those questions you have to discuss even before you start your work on the integration. Other common problem, it's a natural keys. So as you know, within CRM, we don't have a natural key concept. We have GUIDs. While moving data from CRM into AX, you will need to decide which of the fields on the CRM level are actually natural key and tell the data integrator about this so we can account for them when we are checking whether we have any duplicate records and the other things within the AX itself. Next important thing we also seen on quite a few customers, it's mapping concepts. How would you map between legal entities in AX and business units in CRM? Those two concepts are sometimes not very compatible between those two organizations because CRM might have completely different business unit structure comparing with what currently happening in ERP system. So that I think is another question you have to address. That reminds me that we also have very different security model. As you know, when you're importing record within AX, it will be part of a certain legal entity. But when we importing record into CRM, the owner of that record will be automatically assigned to current service account, which may be good, or you may decide that it's not good from the business point of view, and then you will need to create a custom script that will correctly reassign those records to the right owners. That's just one example of the difference between those two security models. So those are the main things we'd like to talk about. And this is an example after analysis of differences of your operations between operations and sales. That's an example of such mapping that you would like to have before you start working on implementing your integrations using our framework. So let's talk into more detail how all that applies directly to the data integrator. Note that it's an overview workshop, so I'll try not to go way too deep into some of the technical aspects. We do have more details today workshop that has pretty much 16 hours of content. But at least I will try to highlight some of the important things you have to do and provide you with some more links where you can find more information. So main concepts here, if you've never seen data integrator before, first of all, it all starts with the templates. Think of templates as a collection of entities and pretty much out-of-the-box mappings between entities, between one system and another system. Some of the templates, like P2C, are provided by Microsoft, but of course you can create custom templates or modify our templates. So think of templates as a mapping. Now, next part is a connection set. These are actually connection set and connections. They define how you connect to your environments and also which of the legal entities and business units you will be connecting and moving data from and to. When you have those ready, then when you know what exactly you are doing, you will create a project using those connection sets based on a certain template. And when it's done, when all the mappings changed, when you customize those templates for this particular case, you will start the actual execution process, and you can schedule it whether it's going to be a recurring process or one-time run, depends on your requirements. Under the hood, execution process will use DMF and will schedule actually DMF execution run, batch job within the AX if you're moving to the AX side. So you will be able to monitor from that side as well and troubleshoot on the AX side using data management framework there. So that's pretty much our parts of the integration platform in a nutshell. Let's talk about more about the templates. As I mentioned, some of those shipped by Microsoft. You cannot create a new template. You will need to create pretty much a project using existing template and then customize it, remove or even remove all the entities there, and then you can save it. You can save it as a different template. That's how you would create a new template. Yeah, and pretty much those each template it pretty much contains mapping for one or multiple entities that you will use for integration for the particular business process. In the future, we do plan to have a marketplace where partners and customers can store and exchange or maybe sell their templates. So that's going to be in the future. I think it's going to be very helpful for the community. So currently, as I mentioned, we provide 3 templates, and here I will provide a few links. If you are interested in that particular scenario, feel free to follow the links and learn a little bit more on how exactly we implement those integrations and try them out. For project service automation, at the moment it's in preview, and here there is a link which you can follow if you are interested in signing up for the preview and being part of our preview customer team. So now, since we learned about in general about templates, connections, let's talk about more things. So connections are used to store credentials. So that's how you pretty much store the ways to access your environments. When you have connections set, you will create after you have a connection, based on the connection, you will create a connection set. So pretty much connection, the connection set itself, it includes actual environment details, and it also includes organizations, whether it's a business unit or the legal entity within the X, and it helps also define integration keys. Those are replacements for the natural key on CRM side. So that's all defined on the connection set. So as I mentioned, integration keys. So because as CRM does not have natural keys, those integration keys we have to define on the connection set level. And after those are defined for export, we use it to get integration key data from that entity. And for import, that integration key is used to identify whether we have a duplicate record or not. Well, that's an example of integration keys for those entities. So these are the main concepts. Now let's actually see how all these concepts come together for a very simple but very common scenario. Let me present my desktop. I think it's loading at the moment. Excellent. So let's start with a very, very, very simple scenario. So I do have my CRM instance here. And let's say I would like to move my accounts from CRM to Dynamics 365 for operations. A very simple scenario. And just for that scenario, I created here 2 new accounts. So you will see that it's actually accounts that are being moved. Of course, here we have much more accounts here. But just for that example, I have 2, and we have some of the standards that are coming from our demo data. So how would I approach that integration? First of all, I will need to create connections. So I will go here to the Power Apps, and assuming that I already have all the licenses, everything provisioned, that's just I'm going to show a typical start of the process. So here I created two connections. One of them are going to be used to connect to the operations in my Microsoft tenant, and another one is on my trial tenant on Kirill 2019 on Microsoft.com that I just created as a trial for 365 for sales system. So it actually shows answers some of the questions whether or not it's possible to move data across multiple tenants. So yes, it is possible. Now, when connections are done, next step is to create a connection sets. I created a few connection sets here, so let me show you what it looks like. So first of all, it uses my connections here, but also it defines the actual environment within those connections that are going to be used. Here I have an environment Kirill 2018 for sales, and there is a DevBox provision in Azure that I'm using for my operations. Next thing, I have to define which legal entity mapped to which business unit within sales. That mapping also defined. And last part here, that's when I define, or defined for me by default, this is when we define the integration key. For sales, so we define which of those fields are part of the natural key. So these are pretty much preparation work. As soon as that is done, we are ready to create our project. Here, I'll create a simple project. I will not execute it, but I'll show you how to approach it. So here's a new project. I'll call it test CRM to AX customers. That's the name of the project. Then I pick the template that we provide out of the box. Here, I will pick this one, when I move accounts from sales to operations, and click next. Then I pick which connection set I'm using. This is the one that we already reviewed. And now I will pick which organization, from which organization to which legal entity I'm going to perform the move. And when it's done, click next, and we will pretty much create that project. So the operational project might take some time. So I will not use this project, but I will use the one that I already executed yesterday. So you can see how the project look like after we created it. So you can see here, it's very straightforward. It consists of list of tasks that are pretty much pre-populated from the template. You can add tasks, you can remove tasks if you need to. For instance, if you have another data entity that you would like to import or export during your process, you can click here Add Task, and it's going to allow you to pretty much add another entity here from the list of entities, and then define mapping between those two entities. But this one, we'll use a standard one. If you, for instance, have any fields that have been customized, you can review the mapping here between those two, and based on the mapping, you can pretty much see how we move, how which fields from the source system, from sales, how they all mapped to the entity within operations. See here, I think it's pretty robust. And also we have quite a few functions here that allow you to pretty much do some basic transformations while moving. Especially it's relevant for the emails. Of course, if you have any custom fields, you can also add mapping here and change that mapping as well. So when you are ready, you can proceed to scheduling, whether it's scheduling, run it manually or run it every hour or every minute, depends on your business requirements. When it's done, that's going to be our execution history. As you can see here, I executed it once, and it did 25 upserts and 3 errors. So before I show you how to troubleshoot errors, let's actually go within the X itself. I would like to show you that those customers were actually imported inside our system. So of course it's a bit slow as always. We will need to log in. I think it's already been way too long since I opened, so probably it will require some time to repopulate. But trust me, the customers are there. Also list of all customers, and you can see here quite a few. Just look for CDS customers. See that the customer that I created just for that integration has been imported here successfully. And if you go back into CRM, you'll see that account number for that customer being assigned accordingly. Now, next question, usually a very common one. After you do that initial step, see there are three errors here. So question is how to troubleshoot errors. If you click here on the warning, then you will see actually the error messages here. We are working to improve this one, but at the moment some of the error messages are very obvious what's happening. For instance, here, as you can see, there are some mismatch on the master data. There are, for instance, Missouri was not found in the master data table on the AX side, which led to all those 3 records being rejected. Well, sometimes based on those error messages, it's obvious what is happening. Unfortunately, in most cases, it's not enough information. You really need to see the actual data, not just the ID of the data. You really need to see actual data and try out to importing it using multiple options to see how it's actually going to work. For instance, one of the recent customers they had issue with import, and some of the records were failing because with just a question here of warning, something wrong with the financial dimensions. So what they had to do after they see that there is an error, they should go into here, into the operations, and then open the data management workspace. And as I mentioned, CDS runs on top of data management workspace. So if there are any errors coming from the AX side, that's where you can find more information on what those errors are. As you can see here that the job has been executed. So if you have any questions why you have the errors, you go to execution details here, and you will see exactly what is happening, how many records were imported, what is there. As you can see here, 25 were in target, but 3 pending, which means 3 records stuck on the staging state. So you can go and view actual staging data that was imported from CRM into the staging table, filter on the transfer status, and find all your records that are causing issues, and find exactly what data is causing problems. And then if you even want to try it out, click on the copy data target and see if your assumptions are correct after you corrected the data. So that's how you would approach troubleshooting. I have more tips about troubleshooting, but let's go back to the presentation and we can continue with our PowerPoint slides. Give it a few minutes, it's gonna load, and we will continue. Yeah, so in general, also the performance of import also depends on the CDS, on the DMF, but I'm gonna mention it in a little bit. Before we go into troubleshooting and more tips on how to improve the performance of your system, of the integration, let's address a very important topic of what's coming. So first of all, few important features that will help you with more advanced filtering, as well as advanced transformations. Two templates, FSA and PSA are coming as well. That will increase number of entities and processes we help you integrate. CDS for analytics, the answer to some of your BI needs. That is coming as well. Currently it's in development. Here's a link to the article that can explain a bit more about what's coming. There are some, as you saw, some gaps in the error messaging. So we definitely working on to improve error messaging and reduce the amount of time you have to go directly into operations or sales to find out what's preventing your data from being copied over, and better project sharing and management for those templates and the projects. And of course, talent integration using CDS data integrator, it's in the works, and according to our vision, talent going to be part of our happy family at some point of time. The car salesman, as the car salesman says, but wait, there is more. So as I mentioned, that integrator is not only from CRM to ERP, and the key thing that it is coming very soon, it is the Power Query with 75 or more data sources available, and then filtering and transformation. Please know that that preview not available everywhere, but it's available in Southeast Asia, Europe, Australia, and Northern America. This is a quick slide. If you're interested in Power Query, here are the instructions how to enable your tenant for that feature. Now, we have some time. Let's go a little bit deeper and talk about some of the tips for troubleshooting. We don't have too much time, so I will not go into too much details, but that PowerPoint deck will be shared with you. So if, and hopefully not too often, you will have any problems, you can refer to the deck and our documentation to hopefully help you with your troubleshooting process. So few tips I noticed myself. First of all, if you see errors, if you see any problems, one thing you might want to do is to refresh everything, refresh data entities, refresh your browser cache, refresh data entities within the operations side. We do use a lot of caching, and sometimes that caching causes some problems. So use refresh button often. Next thing, check parameters setup. For instance, since now we are using DMF in the background, parameters setup for DMF, it can make it or break it when it comes to performance. Number of threads, how you execute, and other things. We have some documentation on, and also later in the slide, we show what is the most optimal parameters for DMF if you plan to use it for integration between CRM and AX. Other common problems is the connection, other connections, permissions, and also check all the prerequisites, whether you install the latest version of prospect to cache solution into your CRM instance, because if we do solve a lot of problems there, and all the prerequisites on the other two systems that you set things up in the right way. As I mentioned, as I showed in the demo, best way later to find out after you started execution and see some errors, drill into execution history and try to decipher those error messages and see if that provides you enough information. If not, as I showed, you can always go into DMF on the operation side, check execution logs here, and actually go inside the actual staging data to see what is failing and correct it right there. So that part has nothing to do with CDS. It's just pure AX and DMF troubleshooting. So if that doesn't work, or you see that there are some errors which continue, check the mappings. Sometimes maybe you have some custom fields that are wrong, or for instance, the financial dimensions that you are using for instance, to populate into a customer record, for instance, they are invalid on the X side. Maybe you're missing some fields, so that's something you might want to check within your project. So, and of course, we have a few more options how you can even check here. For instance, for the permissions, please do remember that you use P2 license and that your tenant signed up for operations or sales in order to be able to use CDS. So these are on the operations side. These are the boxes that are currently supported for operations, and these are the permissions, access to entities that requires from the sales side. So a few more important things that the version, sometimes it's a problem. Some customers, they try to use integration on an older version. We do recommend to use the latest version, for instance, at least from the operation side, in the July release 7.3 and at least update 12. There are some hotfixes that might enable those scenarios even for previous versions, but these I would always recommend the one that works pretty well. On the sales side, on the CRM side, the 9.0 version is the best one. So yeah, there are a few recommendations here. So if you have a problem here, please refer to those slides, and they have pretty much guidelines on detailed steps on how to proceed. Depends on different types of the errors and what are the recommended parameters for the setup and troubleshooting. Now, with that said, let's talk about the performance. A few tips about the performance. So as I mentioned, Data Integrator is a very simple tool. So all performance problems usually not coming from the Data Integrator itself. They're coming either from the source or from the destination, from the CRM or AX side. So we use data management. So in the appendix for that slide, we have quite a few tips on how to set up proper parameters in DMF for optimal execution. Unfortunately, on the sales side, since at the moment we use a connector, it's not as fast and it does not support pretty much batch execution as DMF does on the operation side. So at the moment, import into sales, it's not as fast as import into AX side. But we know about this issue, and current engineering team working to improve import into sales as well. So now, these are the key takeaways. These are the things we really want you to remember when working with CDS. So first of all, new CDS for applications and upcoming CDS for analytics. Both of them are implementing a CDM common data model. New CDS/CRM where the applications were merged with Dynamics 365. Very rich support of the features in CDS since the spring release, including Flow, XRM, and different kinds of apps, model-driven, or the kind of apps that you can create using that technology. And one of these features is the CDS Data Integrator, is the framework that helps you integrate and makes it cheaper for you to integrate different business processes across those systems, as well as move data into CDS, built on top of DMF, and there are some templates that we already shipped or plan to ship in the near future that will allow to integrate some of the entities out of the box. And of course, the game changer, the Power Query, that will extend capabilities of CDS Data Integrator even more. So these are the key things. As I mentioned, it's not a new feature. It's available since July last year. So as you can see here, we already have quite a few customers running CDS Data Integrator, and we have quite a few projects that are executed on a daily basis using this tool. So if you haven't got a chance to try out CDS Data Integrator yet, there are a few steps which you can try in order to start. First of all, you might want to, unless you already have sales instance and operations instance, deploy a trial for sales, which is free, and you may use one of the operations dev boxes provisioned into Azure. You might want to sign up for Power Apps P2 license, assign that license to your service user, and then review all the prerequisites provided on that link, as well as all the step-by-step instructions how to actually install prospect to cache solution, how to set up connection sets, templates, and projects. And if you have time, please sign up for the Power Query, and we would appreciate your feedback about the feature before it's generally released to the public. So this session was an overview session. We tried to address most of the common questions that are coming from using CDS. Hopefully it was very useful both for the people that never seen CDS Data Integrator before or who already started working on it. But of course, within 1 hour, it's very hard to fit all the recommendations and all the tips we have. So currently we have 2-day in-person workshop. We already run one in India and another one in Seattle. And we have quite a few more locations that are available for this workshop. Here is the link how you can sign up for those workshops or share the partner source. And we currently also plan to have a virtual workshop based on that 2-day in-person workshop to be available at some point of time in the future. So that deep dive will, of course, provide much more detailed information about that feature, and hopefully that will answer most of your questions after you start working on that feature. One other source of information is Yammer. Definitely we have amazing community at Yammer, and both engineering team, solution architecture team, customers and partners, they ask questions, answer questions, and it is a very nice way to learn about what's happening. And if you have a problem and you have some questions, this is the best place to ask those. So these are my favorite ones when it comes to integrations. Depends on which part of the project you're working. You may want to join Prospect to Cache or either the Talent Preview, Dynamics X7. It's always very, very useful. Yammer, which is a very generic Yammer for the Dynamics 365 for operations. And if you use field services, you join that Yammer, or the for Flow and Power Apps, we have also a separate Yammer, and all those groups are very active. Remember that you will need to sign NDA with Shelly before she can add you to those Yammer groups. So these are the main things we wanted to share. I believe there were quite a few questions asked while I was presenting. So Paul, is there any unanswered questions? Or guys, if you have even more questions now, it's time to type them. We have exactly 4 minutes. And Paul, if you can, Paul or Vasu or Martin, if you can unmute and read some of those questions, and maybe we can answer them with a voice to save some time.
Let me read a question, Kirill.
Yes, please.
Can we
I think Paul, Paul saw.
Can we schedule auto
Go ahead.
refresh of data entity created in CDM with Power Query D365F4? Currently, we have to use get data button refresh manually. I think it's feedback well taken. We'll pass on the feedback. I don't think there's a auto refresh capability at present.
Thank you, Vasu. Any other questions we have unanswered?
The second for using data integrator, one needs a P2 license and a D365 license. The question was confirming whether that's correct.
So to be honest, I'm not a licensing expert, but I believe at least to try out, if you, for instance, provision a trial version of Sales, then you will need to get also separate trial license of P2 in order to be able to use all the features. That's what I've seen so far. For production instance, I'm not quite sure that we do need the P2 license, but we can follow up on this later offline to see what exactly the requirements are.
Yeah, that's all the pending questions. Let's see, we have 2 more minutes if there are any coming up.
Fantastic. Sounds good, guys. So please feel free to ask more questions either here or later. You can reach out to us offline. And of course, please do sign up to those Yammer groups. It's always a very good place to work, to get your answers. Oh, I see one more question here in the queue about whether it will work with the Business Central. So at the moment, it does not support Business Central. So right now, the Dynamics, the data integrator out of the box, at least at the moment, supports only those two systems, which is Sales and AX. And with Power Query, of course, it will support much more systems for one-way integration to get data out of the third-party systems into CDS.
Another question is, do we get a copy of the slide deck?
Yeah, absolutely. So we will send out the copy of the slide deck after the session in a little bit as a PDF file. And absolutely all the links there and everything, you will have full access there. Also, there are more detailed technical slides, and we will at the end, at the appendix, so feel free to use those slides to learn more about CDS. For question about, I see there is a question also how to join Yammer and how to reach out to Shelly. The best way, as far as I remember, is to just email her. And I will post her mail address here. I think now she absolutely hates me for this because after every of our sessions, she has like hundreds of emails. So say hi to her from me. But this is a way to get assigned. First of all, she will, as an answer, she will send you an NDA form that you will need to sign, and then she can add you directly to those Yammer groups. All right, guys. So I think we are at the top of the hour. If there are no more questions, then thank you very much for coming, and hopefully you enjoyed the CDS data integrator feature and what's coming. And Janice?
All right. Thank you, Kirill.
Yours.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring your attention to a link that I posted in the messages panel. That's a link to a short survey for this web conference, and we ask that you please take a moment before logging out to access it. We hope that you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference, have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, or you'd like to submit topics for future web conferences, this is how you can let us know. The survey scores are on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible. And that is going to conclude today's web conference. Attendees can access the web conference recording by the same registration link used to attend today's live broadcast. As Kirill mentioned, we will be sending out a copy of the presentation via email. Please look for an email from Learning Media with details on how to access that. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Kirill, Martin, Paul, and Vasudev, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.